Come with me to a magical place where being labeled the Pork Queen is a compliment, where being nice is just a way of life, and where all leaders of the free world must pass through. Welcome to Iowa. Whether you're a current Iowan, an Iowa expat, or an Iowan at heart, this show is for you. This is the Iowa Podcast. Real Iowans, real talk, no drama. I'm Justin Brady, and today we're joined by Elias Johnson, the new anchor at Channel 13 HD here in Iowa, and of course, Fine Focus Media owner as well. You're kind of wearing all hats, dude. Thanks for joining me on the show.
Yeah, I have no life anymore. I'm surprised I made 30 minutes out of my day just for you, so you're special.
30 minutes for me and all the Iowans listening. So the number one most important question I have for you is, because you were we're going to talk about all this, right? You were an anchor over at 5, now you're at 13. Dan Winters has resigned. He's going on to greener pastures. And so that left a hole, and then you filled that hole, basically. And so you're no stranger to anchoring the news. This is not your first rodeo. So one of the questions I have is, Iowans, we're pretty desensitized to like public figures, right? We see them all the time, caucuses. But what is the most common thing you hear when people recognize you in public? Like, is there the most common response? And if so, what is that?
Wow, you're really short. I'm a little guy. You know, it's funny. I was at a downtown pub, and I was having a drink, and I got done, and the gal slips me the tab, and she said, you know, you probably get this a lot, but you look a lot like Elias Johnson. And I kind of looked at her. I had my suit on still. You know, I'd gotten done with work. I looked at her, and I was like, really? I go, I guess that's pretty accurate. That's who I am. And she goes, oh, my gosh. And I looked at her. I go, well, thanks for not making it awkward. You know, I almost wanted to play it out and ask her, no, I do hear that name. Is he like, who is he? And just see what she really thinks of who Elias Johnson was. But no, she was a quasi fan. She was a viewer. And just a lot of people say, because I'm just kind of like a 5'8", 178-pound guy. You know, I'm just kind of a little fella. And that's the biggest reaction, because when you're in studio, you know, you're sitting in these high-rise chairs, and they try not to make me stand next to Ed and Keith a whole lot, because they're a few inches taller than me.
Ed's a tall dude, yeah, for sure.
But everybody's, you know, the coolest part is I feel like I'm in the inn, you know, because I am an Iowan. I grew up on a farm. And so you kind of get a pass. Whereas other people, I think, get vetted a little bit more.
Sure.
Because there's just a trust and familiarity, I think, with especially Iowa viewers, where they're loyal. And if they know you're a hometown boy, all of a sudden you're relatable, and you kind of get moved up the peg to the next level of like, okay, now are you any good at what you do? But
yeah,
they definitely give you a chance, I feel like, when they know that you're a local.
Yeah, no, I did, you know, we've known each other for a little while, and I did a short stint on WHO radio, and the comment I always would get was, oh, you don't look anything like the way you sound. It's funny that people they just go right for it, right? They just come, you know, oh, you're shorter than I thought. Or in my case, it's like, oh, you don't look anything like you sounded on the radio. It's absolutely funny that people just they just come right out and say what they're thinking. So why the change? That's what I think everybody wants to know. Like, you disappeared from 5, you ended up on 13. Why the move?
You know, after doing the morning show for 6.5 years, getting up at 3 a.m. That I think, if you don't have a shelf life on that shift, you are on the abnormal side of broadcasters. I feel like most people that do the morning show shift in this business, they can't do it their whole career, because it's just too hard on your body and your mind, your psyche, physically, emotionally. I thought it would get easier just getting in the routine of doing it. But then, you know, on the weekends, you're throwing your sleep schedule completely off. And it caught up with me at about year 4. we had another child, so we've got a 3-year-old now, and that was a really tough adjustment. Was making sure I was meeting the needs of her and my two older ones. I've got a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old. They can take care of themselves, but hitting the reset button on that schedule was something I couldn't do anymore, and I had no intention of leaving Channel 5. I was very loyal to the station and to the people that were there, but at the end of the day, they really wanted to put all their eggs into the morning show basket and grow the revenue stream there, which put me in a tough spot because I wanted to go to the evenings. And at the time there was an opening there, but at the end of the day, it was a business decision on both sides, and no hard feelings. And I left. I said, you're going to end the contract early and do the new agreement and have me continue on the mornings. And I just said, I appreciate everything you've done for me. It was not a bad experience. Like I said, there was never a situation I was put in where I was like, I want to be somewhere else. I'd rather be somewhere else. I was happy on the air at 5, and the people I worked with were fantastic. Some of the hardest working people in television, though you'd never meet most of the people that just work their tails off there. And so I left. I stayed till the end of the agreement that they ended, and I had Fine Focus, my media company that I'd been doing a little bit of side work on for some clients, video work for marketing purposes and documentaries. And it was enough to keep my wife home to, be with our young daughter. And so for the last year, I was doing that. Now, full disclosure, as soon as some of the word started to spread that I was going to leave, I started getting calls. And one of the early calls was from management at Channel 13.
Oh.
And we probably met twice talking about other opportunities. You're doing your business. They knew I was out doing storytelling. Is there a way we can, have you do some of that for us? You can still do your business. They were very supportive of me doing my own thing. And yet I think they saw the value of me as a storyteller. Plus I worked there, 13 years ago. That was one of my first jobs.
Right. I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah. And so I was only there for about a year before I jumped to the CBS affiliate in Phoenix, where my wife's family all lives now. It was a family decision back then, but Keith was there, Ed was there, Aaron was there, a number of producers. I mean, the janitor was still there, the custodian. And so there was a Dan leaving was a big hole, and it was kind of a surprise to some people. And they really looked hard and long about, who can we put in here? What's available? The job market's not great right now. We've been going through that for a couple of years, just even in the broadcast industry, because so many talented people are leaving. And so they came the third time's a charm. They called me up and said, Dan's leaving. I know you wanted to get back into the anchor chair possibly, but you still wanted to be a storyteller. So I looked at it and I said, that job comes up at once every 18 to 25 years. I mean, I go back to the John Bachman days.
Yep.
He was there for a long time, and Dan was there for close to 18 years, I believe, as a reporter and then an anchor. And so I looked at that and I said, what an opportunity. That says something about the station when people are staying for the long haul.
It really does. Yeah. And it's been
so
like
I couldn't turn it down. I couldn't turn it down.
Yeah, and it's like John Bachman, I couldn't tell you, but I think John Bachman was there ever since I was in diapers. So it's been like two, like John and Dan, as far as like 50% of the anchor crew is all I knew. And so you're number 3 on that. I grew up with 13, right? That's all I knew. I don't know. I couldn't tell you anything about 8 when I was growing up, because that didn't exist in my world. It was only 13. And it's funny when you grow up on a station, that's kind of the station, and the other station is like those weirdos. so 13 was
they
like,
are weird.
I don't know, they're weird people at 8. So now people are probably hearing you like make this implied, I don't know if this is the right word, implied differentiation, or you're being specific about storytelling. So they may not understand, like, okay, well, what, there's the anchor role. Why are you talking about storytelling? How is that any different? So, like, what kind of changes should people expect to see when you are in the anchor chair right now? What are we going to see?
Well, you're not going to see me in the anchor chair all the time.
Ah.
Classic evening anchor would be you're going to anchor the 5, you're going to anchor the 6, you're going to anchor the 10. And with 13, they do the 4 o'clock news, the 5, 6, and then there's a 9 o'clock they do on KDSM, and then there's a 10 o'clock. And, you get tied down to that chair too much, and you don't get a chance to actually go out and tell stories. And that was a big thing for me. I said, if we're going to do this, I want to be able to go out and tell stories. I want to be able to interact with my community. I want to be able to cover the things that I want to cover that I think have value, that are the stories that long after the newscast is over with and you're at work the next day, or maybe you're with family, those are the stories you talk about. Hey, did you see this? Did you see that story on this? I mean, those are the things I like to cover, kind of the uniqueness of Iowa. Some of them hit you in the gut. Some of them put a smile on your face. But that, to me, is empowering. It fills my cup knowing that I can do that while conveying a message and scripts that, 2 or 3 other people write and I kind of tweak. But conveying a message from start to finish in my words, in my creative little sphere, is an empowering feeling. And at the end of the day, when I'm done, it's what makes me look back and say, I'm doing good work. I'm getting the feedback. I'm getting people engaged. People are talking about things. We're not doing it in a way where we try to make you feel a certain way, but you're going to feel something. And it's going to be based on your own experiences and maybe some new information you've seen. You're going to be able to come to a conclusion on how you feel about a story.
Yeah.
And to be able to do that is, like I said, very empowering and very important to me. I don't take it lightly. And I looked at the overall picture on what 13 wanted and needed. And I said, this is just kind of like the stars aligning for me. I'm from Iowa, like we said, who gets to do that? Not a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. Not a lot of people at all. And you do have some awards, right? You have some Emmys for this model from 5, correct?
Yeah, that first year I was there, I was actually shooting. So I was the videographer, the editor, the writer, the presenter on all my stories. And I started doing that when I anchored in Reno. That would have been, 7 or 8 years ago. And I really took full ownership on producing a story holistically from start to finish. And that first year at 5, after learning from some of the very talented people I've come across and always asking questions, WI is the oldest, it's the first station that was established. I think it's going on 70 some years now. I was able to win the first ever Emmy at the station. And I did that as a solo project. And then along the way, over the last 6 years I was there, I won 3 more through pieces and portfolio work that I produced. So, and a couple of Murrows, and some of those are overlapping stories, but it was kind of a point of pride, honestly. It wasn't for me. It was, I wanted to lead by example and say, at 5, we might be in 3rd place behind 8 and 13, but we can still produce award-winning work that people talk about the next day, that helps shape the discussion and at least advance the discussion forward. And we can do that here. And we can be proud to wear that logo on our shirt. And we can be proud to talk about where you work. And even when people still think you're part of the college station, which they do, they still associate some people, WOI, with Iowa State University.
Oh, that's
funny. It used to
I didn't
be
know
up there and owned by the college. It hasn't been since, the mid-90s, early mid-90s. So, that was the whole point of going in all in extra at 5. Was I knew the situation. I mean, I grew up in this market watching 8, 5, and 13. I know the talent that's come through there. I mean, you look at some of the guys that have gone on to ESPN. You look at Keith Murphy. You look at Andy Fales. You look at Aaron Kiernan. Everybody at some point that I just mentioned worked at Channel 5, got their start there. And it's kind of like for some people, it's kind of like when you lose Cale Sanderson, to in the wrestling world at Iowa State. Here's this undefeated national champion, comes back to coach, and then unfortunately has to go for just a better opportunity. That's kind of what I equate the whole scenario was. It was kind of like, I got to be Cale a little bit at Channel 5, and now I'm just in a better position for me as a person. And professionally a little bit. There's just a little more support with the company that owns 5, because they used to own or owns 13, because they used to own 5 when I first came on, and then it was spun off and sold to Tegna. So I'm back into a corporate structure that knows me and I know them. And that's really nice, because these companies that own these media stations, they have hundreds and hundreds of stations.
Right.
And it's easy to get lost, but to know that some of those guys that sit in, the high rise in Dallas know of me and know of my work, that's really nice, because they'll fight for you.
Right. And what's interesting, I think a lot of people, they see what's in frame, right? They see the background, they see what's in frame, and that's pretty much it. And they go about their lives, which is the way you guys want it, honestly. But I think that a lot of people don't fully understand that, I think most of the behind the scenes stuff people see comes from like the newsroom and media, right? And that's like national stuff with like multi-million-dollar budgets. But I think a lot of people are surprised to realize that the anchor role at 13 is quite an active role. Like you do a lot of, you will shoot some of your own stuff. You do like chase down your own stories. You don't have a staff of like 50 people that are doing all that, right?
No, and I'll give you an example. The first week I was there at 13, I'm anchoring the 5 and 6, and sometimes I'll jump on the 4 if somebody's missing. Sometimes I do the 10. I do the 10 now that Jody Long is on maternity leave, because Justin Surrency, the main 10 o'clock anchor, has shifted his schedule, so he's doing some weekend stuff. Thursdays and Fridays I'll be on at 10, but the first week I was there, I had some downtime in the evening, and one of our reporters, they go out and they shoot their own live shot, Taj Simmons, and I said, I'll go shoot it for you. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, the anchor is going to come shoot my live shot. And I said, I was like, yeah, we're going to light you up. We're going to backlight you. You're going to look great. And so there's been at least 2 occasions where I've gone out with the reporters and been on the other side of the camera, because number one, I like doing that. I like to be on that side of the camera and make things look nice. But it's also just another thing about being the example, being a leader, and saying, you know what, I'm not just in this corner, that's all I can do. I can do other things. I can help you out. We can bounce ideas off each other and make it a better experience, and just really reinforce the whole team aspect, where it's like, if you need me, I got you. If you need something, I got you. If I got time to do it, I got you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't have any clue how important lighting is. It's just one of those, I don't remember when I learned, but I was doing like a keynote or something on virtual. And I didn't have any clue about lighting and why that mattered until a buddy of mine, like Terrence Thames, who here in Des Moines, he does a lot of media work, and he was like, dude, lighting matters. Here's how you kind of set your lights. Here's why you do it. And I'm like, okay, lighting is like, one of those things that all the professionals will notice, but the normal person's not going to notice. Boy, I was wrong. Like lighting changes everything. It adds drama. It adds cinema effect. And not to mention like if you get more lighting and better lighting, you have like a much better quality picture. Like who would have thunk it? So,
well, look at the difference. And at a local level, when you're running and gunning, the difference of the interviews between what you see here and say on 60 Minutes, it's all lighting. A camera's a camera. Yeah, there's better cameras with better quality, but what really puts at the network level, because they have so much more time to do an interview,
right?
It's called it's called 4-point lighting. So 4-point lighting means they're using 4 lights with 4 different specific uses for each light. There's a light on the person, on their face, that's offset. There's a light that comes in from behind them, kind of like, I always tell people, think of like, like
Halo,
from the heavens. And then
Yeah.
there's other strategic lighting, whether it's a downlight, so there's no shadows under the chin, or there's certain elements in the background that pop. Like those are all strategically thought out things that people do. And I mean, it's almost like, Bob Ross with a paintbrush. When you figure out lighting, you can really do some cool things.
Yeah, it's
and
cool.
It makes your stuff look so much better.
And I was watching some, what we should see on Channel 13 on your website is how Elias lights a scene. Because if you see, I'm sure if you'd show it to someone, they'd say, yeah, that looks cool. And then, but once you compare it to, here's just a basic light setup and here is the 4-point setup, it's like mind blowing how much of a difference lighting makes. It's almost like you're showing me a camera trick. This cannot possibly be just lighting. So
Yeah.
it's absolutely crazy. I'm sure you're aware of this. This is on your radar, but one of the big things I wanted to ask you about, especially Iowans, because we deal with caucuses every 4 years, and so we know BS a mile away. And so one of the things that is a challenge in news right now is the Gallup numbers. Americans' trust in media is, I think this just came out, is like record lows. And television is at 11%, like trust the news, 35% kinda, maybe trust it sometimes. And like half of Americans don't trust it at all. So is there like a plan you guys have at 13 to start to win some of this trust back? Obviously, you can't help the national guys, but is there a way you can help Iowans trust the news again?
It's about differentiating that we are not national. We do air some national content, but our goal is to provide local content, city council meetings, advocacy work that's happening. Our veterans here locally, how can we give them their voice? Local news is completely different than what you see on CNN, Fox, MSNBC. It is well established where everybody's allegiances lie, right? Mm-hmm. Where do they lean? CNN is in total damage control now that Jeff Zucker is gone, trying to go from that left-hand viewpoint back more to the middle. And, Trump didn't help, but at the same time, he kind of called a lot of people out, about how unfair coverage was, which wasn't always true, as we know, with the things that he says. But at the same time, it was a lot of just pointing out the facts are facts, like, where Fox goes and Newsmax and some others, and where MSNBC's at and where CNN is trending. And and I think that's a disservice, obviously to people, because if you're just surrounding yourself with stuff you want to hear, you're not challenging yourself to do your own research and to actually have original thought. And that's what we do with local. Is it's just presenting the facts and putting it out there. It's really tough though, because if there's a local story we do and somebody doesn't agree with somebody's viewpoint, they say, oh, it's fake news, or that's not fair. I don't agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. We're not telling you. At the end of the day, you have an opinion, right? You just saw a piece, you have an opinion on it. That is exactly the way you should feel. It doesn't make it wrong, though, that the information was presented. You just don't agree with whatever that person was saying that we interviewed, right? And everybody should have a chance to have their voice heard. And that's the definite focus on all the stories we do now. Is you better make sure if you're going to go tell this side, you make just as much effort to tell the other side, because if you don't, then you get into that problem of you get one single source side answers and you don't have anybody to challenge it or to represent the other side. But, unfortunately, even when you do have a balanced story, it just pisses people off to see somebody they don't politically agree with talking in the story that also includes their person. And both sides, Democrat and Republican and independent, depending on how you feel about things, are guilty of that, I think.
Totally,
Not looking at context of what was covered in a story, but just being, like I said, pissed off that, somebody they don't agree with was given a chance to say something. Yeah,
100%. It does drive me crazy. I'm like, can you not? Like, one of the people I met, there was an author, Julie Bogart, I think is her name, wrote the book Raising Critical Thinkers. And she says a couple bias checks you can ask yourself are, what do I want to be true? And the other one, I'm going to blank on this, but the other one is, do I want this to be true? and what would the other side say? Like, try to represent the other side as well as you can in a way they agree with you. So if I was a Republican, I'd say, hey, Democrat, I think you feel X, Y, and Z. And they need to say, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. Like, if you're doing those few things, you're probably having a more objective viewpoint. But if you can't do those things, you're probably not having an objective viewpoint. But yeah, it's hard. And like, again, it's not this national, you're local, you're in the community, you're aware of the community. And at least from our previous discussions, you're pretty receptive to feedback. You are. I'm pretty sure 13's the same way. So if people have questions, they can probably reach out to the station with feedback, I'd guess.
We'll get them every day. We have, some of it's just, you suck, and I can't believe we get accused of being the Republican station. We get accused of being the Democrat station. And it's like, guys, we're not doing anything different here. It's just, you saw something that maybe you didn't like. And it's okay to feel that way. It doesn't make it wrong, though, that the information was there. That at the end of the day, I feel like, there might be a negative carryover into local news, but I think it's more what people feel nationally with, the big three. The day that people will miss local news and they will miss being able to know what's happening in their backyard is the day it goes away. And we're seeing it with newspapers. And you go into those small towns that used to have daily newspapers and you ask them how much they miss reading about what's happening with city council, or what's happening at your schools, or what's happening with this construction project. People miss it. But unfortunately it's over, by that point. Because
it's so true.
And it's sad, because journalism at its core there's a reason why it's in the Constitution. And it is a checks and balance on all of your public dollars, on public sentiment. We are kind of the gatherers of what's happening here. And it's like, I know you may not like the messenger some days. It's kind of like the weather guy, that is predicting bad weather when you have to have your big family outdoor picnic. You don't get mad at the weather guy, do you? Like, he's just telling you it's probably not going to work out this way.
I mean, some people do, but
they do. Information is power, and it empowers you. And and at a local level, it's almost like voting, right? What has more impact on your life, national elections or local elections?
Local. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Some people don't understand that.
Right.
They think that it's just the president and the people they send to DC. Your voice is not near as powerful as it is with your city council and people that you see at the grocery store, for crying out loud.
Right. So we're in this really, really bizarre time, because a lot of podcasts, a lot of media, there's this pull to do these national things. But at the same time, like you indicate, there is this big craving for local and live stuff. So like you have, you're competing with the Netflixes of the world, the Disney Pluses, but like there is a craving, because like you see on Netflix, they have like an option to do, or is it Amazon? I don't even remember, but watch party. Like you can watch things together, a live shared experience. And then we have apps like the call-in app that's live audio. We have Clubhouse. So there is this craving for live, and companies like Amazon, Axios, and like some of these national brands, Amazon, Axios. There's another one that is escaping me right now. They're starting to see the value of local. They're investing in it, while media companies, some of them are trying to go more national focus. So you're in this, I have to imagine, bizarre time, but also kind of an iron is hot time. So how do you win over, especially the millennials and maybe some of the Gen Zers that probably aren't as used to watching like the news as maybe the boomers and the Xers?
Well, it's tough. Their attention span is as long as your pinky toenail, like
Right.
They have zero attention span. They want to see wow. They want to see, I think, quality more than anything. We had this big talk at 5 when I was there about how do we get more people, to watch. And we brought up Netflix, and we brought up Amazon Prime and all these documentaries that people binge watch. What makes people binge watch? Stories, number one. Look at the quality of the work that they're doing. Look at the lighting. Look at the way the stories are told. Look at the amount of effort it goes into telling the story. Now, when you get into documentaries, again, you start getting into that, I think, gray area of sometimes, you look at Michael Moore, right? Produces. Right. I love watching Michael Moore's documentaries because they're put together really well, but they're done with an agenda.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
with a very clear, an unapologetic agenda. But they're done very well because they're sequenced well, they're shot well, they're storyboarded well. I said, if we want to start competing with the stuff we're seeing on streaming services, we have to shoot good content.
Yep.
We have to sequence the content. We have to tell it right, present it right. And, at a local level, we have to make sure we're balanced too, because at the end of the day, we're not Michael Moore. And we're not some of these other documentaries that are very fun and entertaining to watch because they have a certain idea they want to drive home. We have to make sure that we are balanced, checking all the boxes off, but we have to produce really good quality content. And it takes so much work and resources to do that.
Yeah.
And as this media world kind of finds itself, and it's sad when I read the stories of all these veteran journalists leaving the industry because, we have to be able to commit to the stories of the day, but we also have to be those people thinking about Netflix quality content.
Right.
And,
I think you hit on it.
That is what I'm focused on doing. And the nice thing is that, there are needs where some days I got to go out and do, shoot a live shot on dry yards. I did that the other day. But there's also the really cool story I got to do right off the bat with the guy that's blind and was blinded by his mother as an infant. And now his kidneys are failing. And he's the most positive guy I've ever met in my life. Yeah, and I specifically chose the most talented photojournalist at the station to go out and capture the elements that I needed because I knew it would look good, sound good, be Netflix quality, and it was the first time in a decade I actually got to work with a photographer and an editor.
Yeah. And I think you hit on it, right? Like, it is a quality thing. I think that's exactly it. People think that, there's just nothing we can do. Netflix, Amazon, they're just going to eat our lunch. But you're absolutely right. It's like, no. Go after the like if you produce quality local content, there is a craving for that. It's just that I'll be the harsh one so you don't have to, but I do feel like a lot of local media entities have gotten so darn lazy and they don't put in the time and attention to detail. Elias Johnson, new anchor over at 13HD and of course the owner of Fine Focus Media. How do people connect with you? How do they see these stories that you're telling?
WHO13.com is the easiest way as far as the online content. On Facebook, Elias Johnson, I got a journalist page there. I post everything there. And Fine Focus Media, just Google it, you'll find it. We get to tell some great stories, and that's my approach with those folks is we're going to tell your story, but we're going to make it look like Netflix did it.
Right. Elias, thank you so much for coming on the Iowa podcast. I appreciate it.
It was an honor to be here, my friend.
And to my fellow Iowans, Iowa expats, and Iowans at heart, thanks for listening and subscribing to the Iowa Podcast.